Hello, Rachel.
Hi, Ryan.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Just pretty good. I'm doing ecstatic. I am as happy as Harlan Ellison when he demands to be paid for his work. That's how I'm doing. I'm as ecstatic.
Energized.
He's ecstatic with it. He's so energized.
He's not happy about having to demand that.
But he also kind of loved doing it. You could tell there was a gleam in his eye of telling people to go fuck themselves when they didn't give him money. And we are both yum yum at the same time, right, Rachel?
Yep.
You're feeling yum yum?
Mm-hmm.
How much yum yum would you say out of 10?
That's not how yum yum works.
But I'm asking you on this occasion of how do you feel out of 10?
I refuse.
Wow, okay, refusal of the call. Rachel is going on the on the hero's journey. By the end of the episode, she'll embrace all of the yum yum into her veins.
I embrace the yum yum. I'm not willing to change the conditions of yum yum.
Come on, Rachel, just be a guy and just do it for me. But we are here to talk about science fiction television on YumYumPodcast, and this is our show, YumYum5, where we talk about Babylon 5. We are rewatching the show, revisiting it, and reviewing it. As people have seen the show before, we want to talk about it and go through the nitty-gritty details one episode at a time. And we are joined by somebody that we haven't had in a little while. Yes, it is not Pat, but his brother, Nick. Nick, you are here. Welcome back.
Thank you. I did before... when I mentioned to Pat that I was going to be on this episode, I did try to bait him into it, saying, "Hey, if I can't make it, can you just join, pretend to be me, and then at the very last, at the end of the episode, just reveal that you were Pat all along?" But he said no, he would not ruin the integrity of YumYum5 by some sort of trickery like that.
That's how I knew that it would be you on this podcast, because I can hear deceit in your voice. Well, Pat, it's all honor. All honor with your brother, Pat. That's what I keep saying to all of my friends. I keep saying it's Pat's honor.
He's the Naroon. I'm Mr. Wells. There you go.
Of course. If you had to, but you're the Mr. Wells from Crusade, a bumbling buffoon. And we are talking about a very special episode of Babylon 5. But before we get there, Rachel had a look in her eye of, hey, Ryan, are we not going to explain Yum Yum on this podcast? And Rachel, you are squirming in your seat right now because you can't wait to hear Nick explain it in vivid detail.
I can't.
She can't wait, Nick. Hurry up. You're making my wife. She's my wife. Wait.
Well, yes, the name of the podcast is named after, of course, a seminal moment of history on Discovery where a random throwaway line that I'm sure the writer's room applauded when it was suggested, said that, we're going to, make AI sausages or something?
It was. Do you want to help me make Leland scream? That's the antagonist.
Yeah, and then she responds with Commander Nan. I think if I'm saying that right.
Commander Nan, responds.
Said yum yum, and the world was changed forever since that moment, and we're in its glow. We're still feeling it. So
we got fucked by it, and we're in the afterglow. And by the way, I'm bringing this up every episode now because I can't believe I haven't done it more. Michelle Yeoh won an Oscar as soon as she stopped doing Discovery. Like immediately after she stopped doing it, she went on to a project that won her an Academy Award. And yet, when she dies, in memoriam, they'll play the Yum Yum scene. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
After we are done breaking and entering, would you like to join me in making Leland scream? Yum, yum.
Nick, you have the DVD description written by J. Michael Straczynski himself, and what episode are we talking about today?
Oh, I thought it was Harlan that wrote this one, but probably.
Oh, story by.
Yeah, he's not. He's
if
too
he
busy.
If he wrote it, his name would say written by.
Yes,
and they would fucking pay him.
or he would drag it out as a lawsuit for
I'm sure he
decades.
demanded to be paid for the story by
He said to J. Michael Straczynski, he said, "Put the silver in my hand, you fucker."
I think he had
JMS just threw silver in the air, and Harlan had to grab it like a little gargoyle.
I think he actually he had a consulting producer or something, or consultant.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a regular, allowance from the show.
And also he was an actor on the show many a times, and soon he will be back as a voice of a special robotic friend.
So the summary of episode 4, season 5, A View from the Gallery, is blue-collar maintenance workers Mac and Bo gain a new respect for the station officers when the two become fly-on-the-wall eyewitnesses to Command's actions during an alien attack.
Rachel,
Yes.
we're experts of a certain field. Could you please lead us into that discussion, the most important part, the part that people actually listen to? They don't care what we have to say about an episode from nearly 30 years ago. They care about this part.
It's really our unique signature. It's our signature move is to discuss who bought YYE, Yum Yum Energy, in any given episode that we are discussing.
And what is YYE, like Yum Yum Energy? What does that mean?
It's hard to distill into words.
It's a vibe.
It is a unique vibe. It's just a moment or a character, the vibe that is reminiscent of the Yum Yum moment, which is weird, slightly sexual, and just breathtaking.
Who could have said Yum Yum in this episode? There's so many choices here, but I'll pass it over to you, Rachel. Who do you think had the words on the tip of their tongue, but JMS and Harlan smacked it down and said, no!
It's hard not to say Jakar, because he's here briefly, but he does have YYE, but he always brings it, so it's almost too easy and too obvious to give it to him. So I'm actually gonna go with Corwin.
You stole my answer! I was waiting for you to say Mac or Bo or someone else, and I was going to slide in and say Josh Cox had such a weird energy in his performance this week. And it's because Corwin treats the maintenance workers very poorly.
Underlings.
As his underlings. And it shows us a window into the fact that Corwin cops abuse from the higher-ups, and he perpetuates that onto the people below him. And Josh Cox, he's been here since season 1. He is a mainstay, and he is, as Corwin was just licking his lips and saying, my character wouldn't say yum yum, but he feels it in every moment of this particular episode. So he was my person of choice. But Nick, do you have someone in the wings waiting to say yum yum?
I was gonna go with Mac just because of the whole what was that food that he's like, can you believe this 20 credits in Sprue? Yeah, the Sprue. I was like, I don't know, I just felt like that's that. I'll give it to him for that part especially. But Corwin's a good pick. I didn't think of that. That was a good pick for both of you. Now you get both good credit. Ryan can happily share with his wife.
Oh, I better get paid for that credit. I don't want to just get it for free from Nick. I want my proper accreditation for that, and that involves a check in the mail from Senior Nick over here. But what is your thoughts on this episode, Rachel? Over the years, we come back to season 5, and those early days can be a little bit dry. And so we have this episode that has a gimmick to it. It's a point of view of a regular episode, but from people that we don't get to see. The people who we know exist, but we don't actually get to have them as characters. Mm-hmm. Even Delenn points out that they're worker cast, and we've never met a worker cast character of the Minbari. So this is an episode of the workers looking at B5. So what has been your opinions on this?
It's fun. It continues to be fun each time I watch it. I'm like, this is entirely unnecessary. And I still, when we rewatch this, I couldn't look at or listen to the scene, like the moment when he's just like, "You're on my book, Lockley."
Hey, Lockley, I'm the fans, and I'm going to give you the seal of approval.
I'm
You're
like,
good
I
after
just-
replacing Ivanova.
I just can't with that moment. But the rest of it, I quite enjoy.
I've always liked this episode, and I, over the years, have found out that this has a bit of a tenuous relationship with some fans. Some people
I can
love
see
it, some
why
people hate it.
Don't like it.
I've always just taken it for granted in a lot of ways. I just look at it
is.
and say, oh yeah, that's a fun little detour. There's some cool things said here and done here, and the concept is unique, but I've never really given it much thought. And then in recent rewatches, I've actually gone through that war where I've hated it on some and I've loved it on others. I find that can be a little bit too meta and cringy at times.
Yeah.
There's too many points in which it's the writers stroking their egos and patting themselves on the back. But on the flip side, I've been in the groove of the episode where I really appreciate what it's doing, what it's saying, and how sentimental and sweet it is. B5 does not always get this, I guess you could say, sappy or positive, but it also doesn't mind undercutting those things with some drama, with some hard-hitting moments. And so I've had a real dynamic relationship with this one over the years where I've taken it for granted. Then I've had the flip of the coin reaction depending on which time I'm watching it, of if I love it, if I hate it. So yeah, this is one that I definitely now don't overlook because I have had such a strained relationship with it. Now, Nick, I have a spreadsheet of each episode that we cover, and I write down names of guests for potentially coming on. And I've been trying to get you on for a little while, but things have been hectic. And I have in season 5, I put you down, and then I messaged you saying, "Hey, we want to have you on," and you shot back, "Can I come on for this one?"
Yeah.
And I had to screenshot you the spreadsheet to prove, like, no, I have you down already. How did you know? Are you looking in our information? So could you give us a bit of insight of what's been your views on A View from the Gallery?
I will, but I just want to quickly ask, just in regards, like, because you said, you've gone back and forth on how you feel about it. Have you, because I feel like it's the type of episode where now, if you're binging season 5, and you run straight into it. There's only 4 episodes into the 5th season, versus if it was, a week to week. I feel like binging it, you might be like more forgiving on it if you're kind of getting, they're being a little bit too clever, but I'm going to be going into another episode right after that, or just because you just watched 3 episodes right before. I feel like that maybe could easily influence it, because I think back whenever I did originally see it as a broadcast, I did not expect, obviously, this kind of episode. It was very different. I like, the episode started very much like, like a normal one, and then suddenly the camera held on those guys and stuck on them for most of the rest of the episode. So when I remember seeing it years ago, I remember thinking it was a nice surprise. They both were likable characters, from the get-go, basically. I think I can see maybe where people would get, slightly annoyed at the being too clever. But that being said, I don't know. I'm surprised if it actually gets actual hate. I'm surprised. I mean, I'm not saying I don't believe it. I don't see. It's not that, that too much full of itself. It's just. It's got its moments, like,
It's very corny, is the thing.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that can be repellent at times. And to answer your question a bit, I would actually say that, blasting through the season and you go to this episode, it does skip over an issue that is ever so clear now, having done a week-to-week watch through, which is Lockley has not existed for 3 weeks. For us, and this episode comes back with her, and they're treating it like, Lockley. We all love Lockley. What, you have a negative opinion on Lockley? How could you? Don't you know her? It's like, I've met her once before this 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So when you're doing a watch through, it's like, oh, I saw her like 2 hours ago. So I kind of have that groove, but the week to week has kind of highlighted that
makes it feel
issue
more
in particular.
disjointed.
And if that's probably the biggest criticism I have when it comes to being able to view this particular story in the way of having watched it in the week to week format rather than just ripping through several episodes at a time, is it does have this defensiveness about Lockley that is rather interesting to note down, while before I just didn't really factor that in as strongly as I do now. And we did mention it, we've joked around it, we've made a bit of fun, but Harlan Ellison is involved in this particular story. He's been a name in B5 pretty much since the beginning as like a conceptual consultant, guy that JMS would lean on for ideas and just some guidance, and he's done some acting in the show. He's been the voice of Sparky the computer. He was a psychop in an episode. In a future one, he will be the voice of Teller's machine in the episode when Penn and Teller show up. And I will admit fully that I know of Harlan Ellison through his legacy, but I've never read any Harlan Ellison. I've never read any of his stuff. I know the titles of some of his famous pieces, but I know him more as a character in his own way. If you're a Star Trek fan, you hear the told tales of what it was like when he tried to write a script for Star Trek, and we've been gagging and making all these quips and jokes and quotes about his wanting to be paid because he was very adamant about writers deserve money for what they do and that the industry is always geared to screw them over, which is very, very relevant as we record this. But Harlan himself, I actually know very little about his works other than just the overall impression is Harlan would write very dour pieces. And so when you have an episode like TKO where it has his fake autobiography and Ivanova is laughing her ass off, that's a joke in itself because it's like, oh yeah, Harlan Ellison, the funny guy, like the guy is always writing amazing gags and jokes. But I know this one is story by Harlan Ellison. Like, this is the most hands-on he gets with writing an episode. And from the little I am aware of, I always think of his rejected script from Star Trek in which he wanted to have a look at the more blue-collar folks of the Enterprise and have, like, this guy's got an addiction or he's, money here, and so when I look at A View from the Gallery, it's like, oh, he finally got to do some of that stuff. He finally got to have a story in a big sci-fi universe about the schmucks, about the blue-collar guys, about the people who twiddle the knobs and fixes the wires and screws things in. He finally got to do it in a show. Good job, Harlan.
That's your problem. Had a bunch of these come in on a food transport about a year ago. Always getting in the wiring.
Lieutenant status?
We have talked recently about how Season 5 has already had a gimmick episode with the Londo having a heart attack and entering his dreamscape. And so, Rachel, what do you think about 2 episodes later, we're back to a differently told style of B5?
It's interesting. It feels like they have the freedom to take chances and knowing that this is the last season. That's what it reads like to me. And I don't mind it because they are both chances, but they're very different in what they're trying to do, which makes them unique and interesting. And part of what makes them interesting is the fact that they're so close together and in contrast to each other in a lot of ways.
This allows for so much to happen, but what is the big takeaways from this that you get, Rachel, with them following the maintenance workers, the people that are having to fix up all of the problems and clean up a lot of the messes that happen with our crew on a week-to-week basis? What is the big things that you walk away from this one with?
For me, it is a reminder that people live on Babylon 5. And plenty of them don't have the understanding of what's going on. They're just told what to do and where to go and have to deal with the mess that results from it. And these guys get more of an understanding than a lot of other people on the station would.
But they still have lots to learn. They have to grow their shoulders out.
They're not on the inside.
I have been always trepidatious when you get to a final season and there's a bunch of wacky episodes, because it's usually a sign that they're running out of ideas and that they have to come up with quote-unquote fresh ways to tell a story. But I really appreciate that this has the traditional Babylon 5 thing of, oh no, a random threat that means the end of us all and we'll have to defeat it. And having these two outsiders looking at it and making jokes and commentary about how regular this is actually fills me with hope of where we can go, because it is the series itself acknowledging
self-reflexive.
It's familiar beats without being too up its own butt about it. But I really agree with what you were saying about how we are following these two men and how it really reminds us that this is a living, breathing station, that there's so many people, there's so many different stories that happen here. When we get to the tail end of B5, we have people like Zach and Jakar talk about how this is a place with memories. This is a place where people had lives, things happened. And so to have just the common folk walking around and they're dictating the thing that we're seeing for the 45 minutes really emphasizes that point. And that's something I've always loved about Babylon 5, is it has that mantra of we would take everything with us to the stars, warts and all. And that also includes in a space station, there's going to be people like this who are good people, but, you know, they're not they're not the quote-unquote heroes, but they are heroic in their own way. They make sure that things run the way they need to for the big boys to do what they got to do.
The whole station would have been screwed if they hadn't managed to get that, what was it, like the secondary grid back online in that moment.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Mac finding one of those gross bugs, everything could have been a dire situation. They could have always contacted Epsilon 3 for help, but we don't talk about Epsilon 3 anymore.
No. Epsilon 3 is...
Shut up. Shut up. We don't talk about it. Nick, as somebody who's, you know, had a long history with television like us, how do you feel about ones like this when you have you are regular with this series, you know how it goes, you know how it operates, you even know when they do something a little bit more abstract like the Sheridan interrogation episode, you can still clap your hands and go, yeah, but this is still so very B5. So when an episode like A View from the Gallery comes around, how does it make you feel?
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely, it is a fresh feeling, a fresh take on it, because it is like, we very much just follow ambassadors and military commanders and presidents and things like that.
The people with the power.
Yeah, the top brass. And, you know, it's nice to see the occasional, regular folks, you know. It's not season 1 with the strike level, but it's, you know, it's something like that. I wish they had talked more about a potential strike coming up or something to give us a taste of that. But the the only thing I would say is that part of me thinks like there should be a lot more workers for such a big station. It's like I know it's like the budget for B5 and the scale of the number of extras and the size of the sets obviously was always a limitation. Seeing the recent B5 film, and they had the interiors of B5, and you can see how much bigger, I guess, JMS always wished it was, versus how much of it a narrow hallway with a painting on a wall to look like it's continuing. It never looked like anything other than a painting to me. But but the idea of a $250,000 aliens and humans on such a big station, and how many things need maintenance, and yeah, those bugs are everywhere. I feel like seeing two people is nice to follow along, but I did think there should have been like a scene where they talked about how many people are on shift or something, just because I go, there must be a ton.
They always try their best with B5, because how many scenes have you seen where the transition is a random mechanic guy is shooting welding up something, and there's just sparks coming off, because that happened in this episode, and it made me think, oh, I've seen that transition like 15 times in this series alone, where it's like, to open up the scene, here's a random maintenance guy. You even get a moment of commentary of, I do believe it is Bo, with the random vacuum thing, like they don't even know what it is, and it's like, that used to be in the show all the time. Remember when that used to be in the background of scenes? He's like, hey, look, it's like random person hovering the metal detector thing over the floor. And so
I'm sure it does something.
I'm sure it does something. But what are some of the big things that you take away from A View from the Gallery, Nick?
It's not, I don't know if I said big things, but like, it's just nice to see them in their life. And obviously there's still a big thing going on of, okay, there's this video game-like logic of alien race that apparently has so many soldiers and fighters that they can just mindlessly send wave after wave as a test, to decide who
wave after wave of my own men
until they reach their preset
kill limit
and shut down. Yes. Zap Brannigan was running Babylon 5. Things would have gone a lot smoother for the crew.
It did remind me a little bit of the, I want to say it's a season 2 episode. I think it's a Larry episode where they have that probe, and that's just a test as well. That if you'd give it the correct.
Oh, that was a season 3 JMS episode, baby. A Day in the Strife. Yes.
Oh, was it?
That was A Day in the Strife, and that's the episode where Franklin's stim addiction comes into play, and we get the Naan with Talon come on board. Yeah, that's very reminiscent of that. And at least this episode, it makes it a specific point that this is a generic throwaway sci-fi plot that you, the audience, don't have to invest in at all, because what is important is two schmucks here are running around as gunfire is happening and people are dying left and right and
taking up arms at one stage.
Yeah, and people are taking up refuge as the station goes through yet another crisis.
Yeah, and it's the most important thing, of course, is that Byron is there.
Oh, we all remember that.
That's how. When I think back to season 5 in this episode, I always my first thought is that it's later in the season. But then I remember, no, but it's got that Byron scene, so it's definitely got to be much earlier. And then even then, whenever I picked the episode, I hadn't looked up, what number it was. And I was like, it's episode 4. Like, wow, okay, it's really in the front.
You got to get those TNT viewers in.
After
with
the wrestling match.
Lockley.
Yes, Lockley. We're going to talk about her.
If I have an issue that riddles this episode, it spends too much time doing nerd talk bullshit. When you hear this premise, I like, there's so much road to go down, and I always look back on it fondly as, it was this wonderful little character piece about these two men and their views on the world and how walking around Babylon 5 changes them as much as it changes Garibaldi or Lockley. But when I actually come back and visit it, there's so much time spent on them asking questions that fans clearly ask or JMS wants to shove in there and then answering them. And I just never get enjoyment out of that. We've been talking through The Expanse on our Patreon, and that's a complaint I have, is it derails its points to just answer technical questions like, how come they don't just shut down the jump gate when this type of thing happens? Or whatever happened to Ivanova? Like, there's some wink, wink, nudge, nudge stuff in there that's a little cutesy. And then there's just stuff where I just can't help but throw my arms up in the air and just say, JMS, leave that on the Usenets. I don't need it in the episode itself. That's not what matters to me. What matters to me more is Mac feeling the sensation of Lockley being a good leader and then it winning him over, rather than him just saying, have you ever heard this thing about this thing? What's that all about? And then Bo shaking his head going, Mac, don't you know that this is how this random detail the nerds want to put on the wiki in the future?
Would humans like Spoo?
Oh, that's a little bit at least character focused of they swap things around but if I have a nit to pick with this one, I wanted it to spend more time on the humanity rather than the lore. What do you think, Rachel?
No, I see that. I'm always just like, I can ignore that. But it does happen frequently. So when you are trying to be analytical about the episode, it does come up as a gripe.
I mean, there's some good things picked up within it, and
it's not all bad, but it's. But
I mean, the nerds want to know this stuff. It's not, as the nerd, I'm happy to hear it.
But at the same time, you have to have narrative integrity. You can answer all the fucking nerd questions you like, but at the same time, I'm sitting here, I want to watch an episode, and at the heart of the story is the humanity, not the JMS pushing his glasses up going, hey guys, you can't get mad at me now because I explained it. I explained it, Nick.
It takes days just to turn off the jump gate.
And here's the thing, Nick.
Otherwise, boom.
If he's going to do that, then he is ripe for me to say, why didn't you bring up Epsilon 3 during the episode? Not once did he bring it up. Why, Nick? Why? If we're going to do the let's sit around the table and satisfy the nerds, that one wasn't satisfied.
Yeah, I feel like it was the last time they brought up Epsilon 3, I think it was just about evacuating people to the planet's surface. It wasn't even the idea of protection and defense anymore.
They can't just shut down the gate. Thing takes 4 or 5 days to heat up and 2 days just to shut down. Any faster and boom. There's an awful lot of power in those things, Mac. An awful lot. Besides, if things get hot, you don't want to close off your only route of escape out of here.
They do have their meta things like addressing the fact Ivanova is no longer here and that everyone had an opinion on that. Like, she wanted a promotion, she wanted more money. Oh, she was heartbroken about that Marcus guy. And then I think it was Mac looks at the camera basically and says, yeah, everyone's got an opinion, but maybe they should keep it to themselves.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. It's military life.
He might as well have said, it's actor's life. You move on from one project to the next unexpectedly. Yes, now we move on with Lockley, our new Ivanova friend. I mean, our new commanding friend. Nick, what are your thoughts on just that moment there?
Yeah, definitely, because it is, I'm sure there was a lot of, I mean, I've tried to research, not now, but like previously, like, okay, what was the story? Because even back then, like you said, on the Usenets, it was a lot of like, JMS said, Claudia said, like, it was already that stuff was going on, and the fans were probably still confused as to what really happened. So yeah, there's definitely him just trying to say, like, just move on from that, because you're not even, the impression I got was even he wasn't totally sure exactly what happened, because there was so many different people involved. But, leading into that, I talked about this Lockley being the new commanding officer, new captain, and it's always been that she's very clearly in the same way that Riker was put into TNG to be the Kirk-like character, we have Lockley to be the Susan Ivanova-like captain commanding the station once we have a president of the Interstellar Alliance. And I think she does, obviously not by episode 4, but like she does have opportunities to develop her character, to show, give her some background and things like that. I feel like if we had just had Claudia for season 5, I actually think we probably would have had less character development, because she's an established character, so what's to develop? And just because Lockley's a new character, then JMS felt pressure to tried to explore her character and give her more of a background.
Oh, buddy, don't you know that JMS originally intended the Byron storyline to not be given to Lita, but to Ivanova? That's what she would have been getting up to, buddy. She would have had that. So she would have had plenty of development. It's just we live in the world where it's like, oh, thankfully Ivanova dodged that bullet. Because that would have been a nightmare. And it would have been Lita who would have got what you just said, which is no development.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing. Lockley, is she a character that you disliked when she strolled on in?
No. It was like, yes, I knew the actress. She was on the first season of Lois and Clark, so I was like, oh, I didn't expect to see her show up, but obviously it's a very different character. But I think everybody just knew right away that, like, oh, this is because Claudia's not coming back. At the time, I didn't know any of the drama behind it, but it very much was like, oh, okay, well, we need somebody to be the commanding officer, and since Sheridan is now president. It's not going to be Corwin, that's for sure.
He's already gotten one promotion. That's more than enough.
Look, if you're going to be running Babylon 5, hands-on the CNC, you need to be a brunette bisexual. And that's a weird thing you have to be. And your character has to be a brunette white lady whose character is a bisexual. That's the rules. I'm sorry. It's not up to me. JMS said that. It's, it's Lizzie and what's her face? Zoe.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the only time, because that one was not, I don't think it was as obvious as Susan.
But it cannot be denied how dedicated Tracy Scoggins is in her performance as Lockley. And this episode really oversteps its bounds when it comes to trying to assert Lockley is this wonderful character we should all accept into our hearts and move on, because she was in one episode before this. I don't know much about her other than she is someone who most likely was on the wrong side of the war. She's this lady with a past with Sheridan, and she's all business, no nonsense. But that's not enough for me to walk away like Mac at the end of this episode and say, I'm all right with her. She's good in my books. Like, I don't have enough here to go off of. There's little details that I appreciate as someone rewatching the show, such as in her quarters, she has lots of images of Earth, like of beaches and stuff. So it kind of gives you this vibe of she is stuck in a tin can, but she's always thinking about home. She's always thinking about nature and the beach and the sea.
That's where she would rather be.
That's where she would rather be.
You don't think those are just like came with the frames kind of things? Like,
I don't know, but they open up with that, right? They have that shot of her and her above her bed. They pan down to her as she has to get ready for another day of bullshit. So it was very noticeable on my rewatch, but yeah, Lockley is a person that this episode insists I should care about, and I don't think it succeeds in that way. Even as somebody now who is a Lockley fan, I actually like Lockley. I think she's a really good character, interesting, bizarre, and as stated, Scoggins is stellar in the role, but you said it, Rachel, that scene with Mac at the end where he turns around and gives her the Walker Smith thumbs up of approval. It's just too much for even myself. And you said it was too much for you.
Is that the by Graptar's hammer kind of thing where at every convention the fan comes up to Tracy and says, "You're okay in my book," and she's like, "Take the signature and go." Like all you fans keep saying that to me. Stop it.
No, they salute her.
They salute, yes, and that farewell to B5 salute, yeah.
Rachel Lockley, we have touched on her in the season episode 1 discussion of season 5. What do you think about her here?
She's fine. She's just doing her job. There's not a whole lot to it. And what she does, it makes sense. And it is very much, this is what Ivanova would have done. And these are the conversations that Ivanova would have had. So I don't think about Lockley much. I think about her job as commander more.
Yeah, I can see that. I will disagree with you about one thing, which is the conversations she does have with some of the characters Ivanova would not have.
Oh, yeah. Like, the way that she approaches her conversation with Sheridan, I feel, is a conversation that Ivanova could have had with him. The one with Garibaldi, very, very different.
That is a bold move on the writer's part to bring in a character the last season to replace a fan favorite. And one of their defining character traits is they do not like and actually have very little respect for a lot of our main characters that we've come to love over the years. Lockley does that in the first episode. She does that here. And it's not as if she's invalid for thinking that way. I love how she rips off Garibaldi's head in each episode she's been in and each episode she will be in.
Do your fucking job.
And
just do your fucking job.
And she's been even though she's been friendly enough with Sheridan, she also isn't impressed by him either. And I really
No, you're my ex-husband.
think that is a dangerous move that could be something that provokes the fans into having disdain for her. But that's the gamble you take because Lockley is someone we don't know how to feel about. They play around with it with Mac and Bo, where they say, oh, she's a competent person. She does the job, as you're saying, Rachel. You think of her in the job and she does it well, but where does her allegiances lie? It doesn't seem like it's with our characters. Previously, it was with Clark, but where does it lie now? And again, taking a step back, it all works, but I always think about Ezri Dax in Deep Space Nine, where Ezri Dax comes in the final season, and her whole thing is like, I don't love you, Worf. I'm not the previous Dax. Leave me the fuck alone. And then she is insisted upon as being much cooler than the previous Dax. And then you're like, but we barely have episodes with you, Ezri. Goodbye. Goodbye forever. I guess we never see you and hear about you again. Bye. Well, at least with Lockley, when she's in this episode, she's putting her foot on the ground and saying, it's my show now, okay? And that's where the irony comes in of the camera pans over and it's actually about these two losers or these two guys, and I really love that. But I have also come to realize over the years that some of my favorite characters in shows are the ones that come in a little later and they hate our main characters.
You do love that. You do.
It's not a popular thing to be a fan of those, but I actually have come to realize that I really do get a kick out of the people who walk in halfway through the show, look at our beloved ensemble and say, and call them on their bullshit. And they themselves have
Who else are you thinking of?
Jewel from Farscape is a great example of this, where she comes in and she's like, you guys suck.
You fucking
Are you gonna say 7 of 9?
7 of 9's a great example of that as well. Yeah. Yes, we can go
Worf coming on DS9.
Ensign Rowe, great example. She comes in and says, you suck.
We didn't get enough. We just didn't get enough of Rowe. That's the only.
But she was one of the best characters. There you go. End of story.
I know the routine. You don't have to worry about me. We're stuck with each other. So let's just get this over with as quickly as possible and go our own separate ways, okay?
The epitome of a View from the Gallery is the Garibaldi scene with Lockley and him in the lift yelling at each other, because we have seen that scene so often in B5, whether it is them yelling, but we've always seen the turbo lift scenes. We've always seen them jump in there and have a conversation, and it ends perfectly with the
timing of the
timing of the doors opens, and the character left in there says something to themselves and walks out or stays in there. And the whole gag here, because A View from the Gallery is a very funny episode, is Mac and Bo, who are our main characters in this episode, are stuck at the back of the lift, and they aren't even noticed.
Yeah, they're just being ignored.
And that's the summary of their life on Babylon 5 is the main plot is happening. See, it's right here. These two characters are yelling at each other, and there's all of this drama and history, and baggage that comes with it, and off they storm to the next situation. And meanwhile, there's just some average people in the background that just, I guess they are doing stuff too. They are people who color the world rather than make it. And in this episode, no, they make the world here, but it's a reminder that no, they just usually color it though. This is an exception to the rule that we're walking around with these two schmucks. Rachel, you and I always talk about A View from the Gallery. We mentioned the Garibaldi scene with Lockley, and I'm surprised you haven't mentioned it. Lockley's hair in the episode, where she says, "Oh, you thought Claudia Christian could tie her hair back real tight? Watch me, baby."
Look at this ponytail. It is engineered.
It's a long ponytail too. I didn't realize how long her hair was.
She won't have any wrinkles because it's all pulled skin tight back to hold it there.
At least it looks so fucking normal in comparison to, say, La'an in Star Trek Strange New Worlds, where her hair is fucking manufactured, looks like it's been made by the fucking Spanish Inquisition to hurt her. At least this is like, she's clearly sprayed some stuff and swooped it back. But, do you have anything maybe Scoggins is like used to her hair like that, but yeah, I honestly did on the rewatch. I was going, man, that is really tight. I did, like, is it comfortable? Is it painful? I don't know. I mean, she's
I guess
too busy to care about that.
She's such a business person.
5 million jobs to do.
But it's also like military buns are known to be pretty painful. So it's just like, well, maybe she grew up the ranks with having to do her hair like that, so it doesn't.
Her hair is very
bother
long
her as much.
Her hair is very long, but we had to bring up the hair talk as she talks to a man with no hair, Garibaldi. Rachel, is this one of the top scenes for you in the episode?
Yeah. It's one of my top Lockley scenes also, because she just serves him. And it's great because Garibaldi is a piece of shit. No matter how much you like him, he is a piece of shit. And he did not do his job very well.
Hey, what's his problem? He has no leg to stand on here. He has nothing.
I didn't ask all the questions because I didn't think of all the questions.
That's your fucking job. Do your fucking job, Garibaldi. That's literally your job.
You made this job to spite Lockley.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. He made this job.
And now you're getting it back to you.
I like that relationship so much where he makes this job just to spite her because previously she was like, you have no rank, no purpose here. You mean nothing to me. I don't respect you. Okay, well, I'll make a job where you have to talk to me and respect me. And then she turns around and says, guess what? You've just made up this bullshit job and I know you're bad at it. You suck. I could do your job better than this.
Nobody has done this job before, but you are still failing at it.
Go back and get the homework done properly, mister, before you talk to me again. Piss off.
It's there was no wrong answer, but somehow you're still wrong kind of thing. But it's like, I think what you guys saying, like, his excuse was a bad excuse. Like, it's like, we can all tell. Bo and Mac are like going, yeah, she's right. We like her a lot. She's got a good point.
There's no stupid questions, but not asking a question is stupid.
That is the case. And Nick, you listen to the pod. You know that we talk about all of the quirky things that happens in this series, but we haven't talked enough about, I feel, the lift scenes and how they are just perfectly engineered, where it's like, and the doors open as soon as the conversation finishes and they leave and the person quips to themselves in the lift, and
whoever wanted the last word is the one to leave, and who actually gets the last word is the person who's left, and they're never going to the same place. They're never
it's such a big station. There's so many more lifts. Like, I understand way back when Talia's just like, every time I go in the lift, Garibaldi's there. I don't understand it. Like, yeah, it would be creepy.
Even Sinclair was grossed out by it.
Yeah, it was like, it really shouldn't be that frequent. But yeah, the lift scenes are an easy recipe for comedy. Like, even the Discovery
convenient.
Making jokes about that, or
or drama.
Vaudeville.
You had Veer in the lift with Jakar.
Dead.
That's a great scene. But then you have Londo and Jakar get stuck in the same place together as well, in the same elevator. But
it was the one where they're arguing with each other,
Mhm.
Jakar, and then the guy runs away. Oh, I missed the lift. Now look what you made me do.
yeah,
like
and
that.
he's a similar thing to Mac and Bo in this sequence, where it's somebody who's not supposed to be in the story is in the story, and it just heightens the sequence a lot more. Of, oh yes, Jakar and Londo always yell at each other, but now it's even more funny because there's somebody who should not be involved in their argument standing right between them, and that's Lockley and Garibaldi. Forced witness, and Garibaldi and Lockley have the same thing, and Mac and Bo are just quiet in the background, and as soon as they leave, they step forward, Mac and Bo step forward, and it's just like, oh, yeesh. Ah, that was a bit awkward, wasn't it?
But you know that Garibaldi's got has put a bug in every elevator in the station. He's just got his covert intelligence just listening to elevator conversations.
And we get some nice sequences like Mac and Bo eating sandwiches and complaining about their lives and about how their jobs work and the higher-ups and the low-ups, and Mac has this awful sandwich that he eats every day. Spoo, I had to try it. The Centauri, they love it. They go crazy for it.
But I will say that it doesn't feel like they're complaining about their jobs, but it's not in a way of, oh, I wish I had the money to quit and go back to Earth. This is work and it's inconvenient in this way, but we get satisfaction from what we do as well. They enjoy that they don't have a regular beat and that they get to work together, and
they don't work in Brown Sector anymore. So when they
Not
do,
usually.
It's a real pain in the butt for them to have to go down. And Bo knows a guy who knows a guy, and Max, the person who's, I don't know anyone. That's annoying. How come you know everything?
He is everything.
Yes.
He's the gossip that doesn't want to recognize that he is a gossip, because it's just like, oh, I just hear things. It's not that he's looking for it. It's not that he's interested. It's just, I just hear things.
Although there's clear signifiers that these guys are opposites, one of them's short, one of them's tall, one of them's the gossip, one of them doesn't care about gossip, on and on and on it goes. One of them's religious, one of them isn't, or one of them has kind of I do like that it doesn't lean so overtly into
chalk and cheese.
This isn't Red Dwarf, for instance. This isn't Rimmer and Lister hanging out together and they begrudgingly have to be friends because they have the job together. This isn't that. These are two people who are very similar. They are clearly our friends. They have a same attitudes to a lot of things. And what I really appreciate about both performances is they have the similar energy to one another. There's obviously differences like, Bo is really happy by a lot of things that goes on, a lot of the weird stuff, and Mac is a little bit more of the skeptic, a little bit more of the talkative type. But when they're having their sandwiches and they swap them around and Bo's Mr. like, you're supposed to say it tastes like chicken. Come on, don't you know how these things work?
I like that Mac is the one that introduces them both, like, every time, and he's the one that's like forward or is closer because he's the more like personable one, like the more extroverted sort of, and you got the introverted to balance out.
But I also appreciate that Bo, although not as extroverted, when he is, he expresses his actual opinions way more. Like, he is a bit more upfront with what he believes, while Mac is...
That his conversation with Franklin, right?
Yes, exactly. Or even with Byron and Delenn. But Mac, he's the personable type, like an average Joe, where he'll shoot the shit with you and he needs to cut to the point because you don't talk to us regularly. So this is really bizarre. So let's just fall back on the pleasantries. But they have the swap around of the sandwiches. That's a running thing about tastes like chicken, which is cute.
A lot of chicken references in this episode. Because the white, like, it's the whole, like, tastes like chicken, and then the white stars look like a plucked chicken.
Oh, you said that they look like a plucked chicken earlier. Now you're calling them angels? Well, they look like that right now. I'm happy with that. Their opinions will waver depending the mood that they're in. But I really do want to just touch on that point that you said, Rachel, though, which is they complain and they talk to one another about things, but it's never with any malice. It's just how we go about life. Of you like your job as a teacher, Rachel, but 90% of the time you're bitching about it.
Oh, yeah. Fucking complaints for days.
And that's, again, another reminder that this isn't the Star Trek world. This isn't the sci-fi utopia world where we all love our jobs and we just are so happy. I'm Geordie. I love engineering. Ooh, a problem? Yay, I can't wait to solve it. While Mac and Bo is just, more bugs. They're going to blame us for that, by the way. That there was a bug on CNC. That's going to come back down and they're going to yell at us about that. Like, just the general malaise that we go through, but there's still a fine appreciation for their roles and what they do. They're not cynical characters, but they aren't just sickly sweet and golly gee, I just love being on B5.
And I really appreciate... Oh, you go, Nick.
I was going to say, we all really felt that moment when they're like, they're going to give us a hard time because of these bugs. It's not even our fault. Like, we all felt that. We've all been there. So that was the most audience appealing moment.
But that also links back to the Londo episode because Zach was saying we've had a few problems recently.
Yeah, with infestations. Yeah, when he's trying to get his Bravari in. I also thought you were going to say that episode with Londo where he was having problems with bugs in his room and he was killing them with his sword that he killed his friend with.
Hey, how'd it go?
Another V15.
In CNC? Oh, man, we're going to catch hell for that one. Damn crawlers are all over the place. Can you hand me that R12?
Over the years, and there's even been some other Babylon 5 podcasts that I've listened to, there are people who don't like Dr. Franklin, people who outright hate Dr. Franklin, and this is just one of those times where I walk away from an episode and throw my hands up in the air very high and say, how do you not enjoy Dr. Franklin when you get scenes like this that are just well done? Like, these are really great scenes that he gets.
With such ease.
Oh, yeah. These Dr. Franklin scenes bring this back down to reality in a really harsh way, but a beautiful way at the same time, because this is a funny episode. This is an episode that's referencing things and making comments, and it's airy and cute, and then Dr. Franklin will come in and he will have some words of wisdom, but also his job is a really horrible job. Like, his job is hard and difficult, and it puts things back into a frame of reference for us and for Mac and Bo. But let's talk about that first scene that Bo has with Dr. Franklin, where he's come into the med lab, something needs fixing, and Richard Biggs does a great job.
The atmosphere controls, and I really like that scene because it also adds viability to when he's talking about, like, oh, I talked to a pilot the other day. And it's just like, just seems to be this knack that Bo has of getting people at this moment and they open up to him in a really truthful way. Because it's just like, oh, I'll never see you again. It reminds me of conversations that I've had with, like, people in transport and at airports. Of,
yes.
Like, you're honest and open in a way that you aren't with people that you know, because you're like, well, if they judge me, who fucking cares? I won't see them ever again in like after an hour
and
or whatever.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
I was just going to praise Richard Biggs. He has this warmth and familiarity that he gives to Franklin when interacting with Bo, to give us, the audience, a sense of he's had to talk to Bo many, many, many times over, but it's not in the same way that Corwin talks to Max, say, or Lockley talks to them, or even how Delenn talks to them later. He has this working relationship. They're friendly, they're colleagues. He knows he's obviously talked to Bo over the years, but they're not friends, but they are friendly. And
it's
Richard
not like
Biggs,
they're not co-workers, but they work together.
They help. Franklin is the guy who needs Bo to help him out, but he is not disrespectful of Bo. And that all comes through from just Richard Biggs' demeanor during this entire sequence of events. But Nick, tell us a bit about this first scene with Franklin where he's talking to Bo. So what's going on? So Bo's come in to repair stuff, but what gets these two talking?
Just them preparing to take on wounded, both for their side, not necessarily just human, but human and known species versus the potential for also the enemy as well. And that gets into the moral question about what is it to be a doctor in a war, which we obviously touched on before with Franklin, and it's he's still the Franklin that we know as far as his convictions as a doctor and stuff like that. But it did lead us into I thought it was a pretty good story to hear again about his father in the Dilgar War, about someone taking care of his dad when he was injured from the other side, only to and that's how his dad survived it, only for his for that person to be killed by his own people. And it's like, even in the side of that, you can still see Franklin still, unwavering, I guess is a word. Franklin's interesting because he's like, you could easily write him in a way that like, oh, he can do no wrong because he's got, he always does the right thing and he always wants to do the right thing, but he still has its flaws. But at the end of the day, he's still going to come back and try to do the right stuff in his own way. He doesn't want to give in on those convictions.
And the universe isn't always fair to people like him. The doctor that saved his father was shot and killed by his own people for being a traitor. And that's the way they button up that scene.
There's a cost to doing the right thing.
There is a cost, and Franklin has suffered greatly during this series. I thought what was really beautiful was the moment of Franklin dropping the speechifying version of himself to say, yeah, it's hard when you see people, they don't play by the rules and it all works out for them, and so it makes you wonder, like, why am I playing by the rules? And he just admits that, yeah, it gets to me. I think about that all the time, but you just have to pull yourself back up and keep doing your best. That's what he does. I go out there and I do my best. People can get away with this, but it doesn't mean it's right. And so I'm going to do what I believe is right because that's who I am, and this is what I have learned. And Franklin is a character that does not get enough love in general. We give him plenty, but this was one of my favorite scenes. And then the next scene with him is my favorite scene in the entire episode because it's so fucking brutal. But just to go back to that very first one, I do like how, again, like so much of the performance work between these two actors, where we get these cutaways to Bo and you see him valuing the lesson that is being bestowed upon him. He walked into this scene thinking, why the fuck should we care about these aliens? We should just kill them. They're coming here to hurt us. They're inhuman. They're monsters. They're just another threat, another thing to be solved. And Franklin gives him a piece of insight of, hey, never forget that they are living beings, which does tie into the Byron scene as well, where Byron even points out, like, this person died a moment ago, and yet there's some energy, something of his being that is still rippling here for the next few moments, and then it will be gone forever. Even though these aliens are faceless, and we just see them attacking, and we see them be attacked, it's still hammering in the point of they are alive, as are we. They have dreams, they have fears, they have goals, but at this moment we see them as an enemy, a thing to be fought against. Rachel, Franklin has been one of our MVPs of B5. And what do you, him in this episode, he does what he did in the first ISN episode, which is bring the mood down.
Oh, yeah.
We have a gimmick episode, and here's Franklin saying, hey, by the way, this isn't a fun thing we're doing.
It really tugs on the heartstrings in a beautiful, simplistic way, especially when you get to him at the end and that sort of like crash of tones with Mac being like, oh, and here we are left to clean up all the mess. And they walk in on Franklin, confirming all of the deaths and all of these corpses laid out.
I think that hits harder compared to the episode with General Franklin, when he's got the soldiers at the end, they're showing them all dead, just because the juxtaposition of them coming in their normal lighthearted mood to that quick cut to that, basically.
And it's no longer about Mac and Bo. Mac and Bo, they're talking about this as, this is their episode, this is their story. Oh, here we go again. We have to clean up the mess. It's so tough for us, as we have been explaining during the previous 40 minutes or so, and then turn around the corner. Oh, that's right. There's always someone else who has something harder to do.
And our hard is different than Franklin's.
He's having to confirm the deaths, as you said, and
close eyelids and
check pulses and write things. And I always remember this scene, but the thing that I forget about, and I'm curious if this is the same way for either of you, is how long it goes on for. It stays in that moment for an agonizing amount of time, perfectly in my eyes.
Oh,
but it's
it's edited beautifully.
And it's silent. Just nothing.
Yeah, I always remember it because it's just like, it doesn't dwell on it, but it takes its time. And that's an art in the editing of it.
And just pacing and the masterclass of balancing and juggling tones, where what is a rather throwaway, funny, gimmicky episode, you can still put this in there and it doesn't feel off-putting and out of place. It's off-putting in terms of what
JMS
it needs to be.
Loves juxtaposition.
Yeah.
Whoever they are, whatever they are, they're coming here to kill us. If I see one of them flopping on the deck gasping for air, I'm gonna let him buy it.
Well, that's your choice. I don't agree.
Why not?
Why not? Some days I wonder the same thing, right? Sometimes it's like no one else is playing by the rules, so why should we, right? It does take it out of you after a while, believe me. Even so.
We also got in the episode, Mac in particular, having a little bit of a flippant and detached view of death. They're in the place setting up the ritual for whatever alien it is.
The sanctuary.
The sanctuary, and they're watching, as they're on their break, the Star Furies shooting outside, and there's explosions, and they're saying it's almost pretty in a way. It's really nice, and it's almost like they're watching a movie or something, or watching fireworks.
They're detached from it because they're not in it. They're not people that they know fighting out there, and Bo has that really sweet, simple line about how, like, they're out there fighting for us.
Yeah, I think it's also Mac points out, it's like, we have to remember those are our boys out there. And they're flying around doing this for us, and they have that conversation about the different color explosions, and they're breaking it down to technical terms, and then
the
once
concrete rather than the abstract.
But then once they do shine the light on the blood that's being shed out there, it becomes uncomfortable again. And then they have to move on to, oh look, it's a star, it's a white star, and it's a heavenly creature, it's an angel, but. This episode, for all of its thrilling stuff of let's take a day in the life of people we don't usually see, it still goes back to the central themes of Babylon 5, the central tones as well. this is also, like, it is a funny scene as well. Like, you just have Mac just guffawing. It's almost like he's watching a football game, how he's cheering.
It's not just one thing, and that's part of what I think all of us, I'm going to rope you into this as well, Nick, like that we like about Babylon 5 is that it is all of the things, not just one of the things.
If they were like that the whole time, then people would be like, what, Starship Troopers? Like, they're just like, yeah, all the time. But it is, first is they are just the maintenance guys, and they are, being detached from it kind of makes it easier because maybe you don't feel so scared because you can't control the situation, things like that. And then I guess first just one white star shows up because it's the implied that the reason that we're not having them just wipe out this enemy right away is because most of them are on deep space patrol.
They were protecting the Infili homeworld, which was in the last episode. So continuity through and through as per usual.
Because they did say send all of the white stars.
And the Drakh were like, oh, why didn't we attack them?
Because they're being slow and steady, and they know who they're attacking. They know their plan.
Exactly.
Rachel, Byron, do you remember Byron, by the way? Do you remember that Byron is here and that Byron has a scene in this story?
I forget that Byron's here, but I remember Bo in the Star Fury. So it's a weird thing because I'm like, why am I forgetting that Byron does this? Because this doesn't make sense without Byron. But I think I just choose to ignore his part of it because it's pure Byron. And Byron is too much for me.
Well, how is he too much in this episode? What's he getting up to today in his colony of perverts?
I mean, the two things is like, one is just that they have the soldier come around the corner and they just make him walk away. We know that he's obviously skilled enough, and there's so many of them, they could shred his mind, and that would be also very easy for them to do. But they choose to do the mind trick, and that's that. So that's very Byron. Oh, we don't kill, we'll just send him away. Even if this clearly a soldier is going to go kill somebody else in 2 seconds when they go around the corner.
But it's not a telepath, so it doesn't matter as much.
Well, they can only do so much.
No, they could shred they could shred a non-telepath easily.
They could just knock him out.
True.
Or tell him to go back to his ship. They could have done that too.
Yeah, I guess it could have been that he was sent back. But and also the fact that he took a moment to, hey, this fight's going on, but we'll give you your wish is granted. You will be in the Star Fury. Like, it's such a Byron line. Like, it's a moment of only he would do that. No, I feel like no other telepath would care to give him that moment. No. And his delivery is very much like, yeah, your wish is granted.
I feel like he's just like, every line I ever say is poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And you should appreciate.
He's Robert Atkin Downes. He does what he does, which is eccentric line deliveries.
He's always waxing.
Philosophically, yes. Yeah. Are you a fan of not only this scene, Nick, but just give us your rundown on Byron, your takes, your hot takes, your thoughts, your opinions, your feelings on long-haired friend?
Yeah, this is my chance to get myself on the record. I don't mind him. I definitely feel like if you were going to have some sort of, leader for the telepaths, that you would go through the hippie phase. And I guess I don't mind. Yes, I don't mind him. The only thing I would say is that it should have been a shorter arc. That's all.
They planned to do.
Yeah, exactly.
My argument is it should be longer to flesh more things out, but I'm not in the majority of that.
If they did that, then I'd say at that point, then you do an actual telepath war.
Or you let me know if Byron is a character that I should feel sorry for or I should feel disdain for. We've talked about on the podcast too much about I can't get a grip on how I'm actually supposed to take Byron as a person and as a character. They try and give him the cult vibe through purely aesthetic reasons, but when you actually break down the stuff he's saying and the things he wants, it's civil rights. That's all he wants. And so it's always been a disconnect. But I wanted to say something a little bit off the beaten path. I love this scene. This is my favorite Byron scene in all of Babylon 5. I think this is a great use of his character. I think it was a perfect addition to the episode. It really helped Bo and Mac as characters out because Mac sticks his foot in his mouth, but he doesn't mean to, but he's clearly afraid of them because it is scary. They are unsettling, this group of people who
They're
can
powerful.
They are powerful.
And an unknown
force for people like Mac who isn't walking into telepaths every day. And yet, I also want to say that this is one of my favorite uses of telepaths in all of Babylon 5 because of something Nick said, which is they did this and no other telepaths we've seen would do something like this, which is to say...
It's uniquely Byron.
It's also uniquely nice because most of the time when we get telepath powers, they're inherently creepy or sinister or they're practical. Like Lita will rip something out of your brain or someone's projecting this fear into Talia or whatever case, or secret personalities or deathbed mind readings and stuff. But this is one of the few, if only, times we see someone do something nice with their powers. Byron sees this man and he confirms with him. He says, "Is this what you really want?" He not just reads the man's convictions, but he asks them and he looks at him and he talks to him as a person, and then he grants him what he wants, which is to fly in the Starviewers, to experience something that he will most likely never be a part of in his entire life. This is something generous, something sweet, something noble that is given from a telepath, and we never see that in the show ever. They're usually there to be a weapon or be a source of intel or to be creepy and scary and do the thing like make the guy walk away, and that's a cool trick and that's neat, but it's also deeply it just puts you on edge of, oh, they can just do that. And yet we have this moment here of...
And they choose not to do that for Mac and Bo.
Yes.
They welcome Mac and Bo.
Just because we're telepaths doesn't mean we don't have defenses, but Byron shows it doesn't mean that we also can't be kind, which is really enlightening to me. After 5 seasons, we get one nice moment of telepathy, like one moment of, oh, that's actually something sweet that they did with their mind powers, rather than this is a curse or a burden or a weapon or something that you use to as an advantage.
Not, Talia's gift that she's given either.
Yes, that's another thing to point out. But I also like there's a third thing which I think is cool, of their telepathy can let them sense the consciousness of a person that's just died.
It's not just thoughts, it's energy that can permeate things, but the fact that it is brief. It's not like the place is forever marked with this death. It will very quickly in reality fade from existence.
And I know that people don't like Byron, but I've always defended Robin Atkin Downes' performance as Byron. I think he brings the character to life. It's mainly script problems that I have with him rather than the performance. People get superficial. They talk about what he looks like, his hair, his accent, whatever. But I think he is a good actor, and he's a good actor in this role. And I thought he rode the line really, really well in this sequence of coming across as tender and understanding and receptive, but also cold and distant and almost alien in a way. Because him saying like, oh, we can read the energies of stuff, that's ordinary for him and the rest of them. But that's extraordinary to Mac and Bo and to us.
We can still feel him. 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 We can what he was, what he did, his hopes and fears and expectations. It's still there for a few minutes. Then it will disappear, joining him in silence.
We have our two main boys that we love so much, Jakar and Londo. We haven't talked about that scene at all, Nick. I mean,
how long have they been married?
Do you like that the show ships them too, Nick?
No, I like the end. I'm perfectly fine with them being buddies, and it has always been a nice. Oh, they start off as enemies, and I dreamt when I saw Jakar. I remembered that he's the person I'm going to choke to death while he kills me. And the twist of them being these friends is fine. So I don't mind seeing that. I think it's just a nice little bit of them. Just to, they're in this episode too. They don't need to be in a lot. Bring the yum yum energy. Jakar says to Londo, but you did the yum yum energy last time. Oh, come on! They're bickering as to whose turn it is to do the yum yum.
It's a thing too. Again, where Babylon 5 is having a funny scene, and it's almost verging on being tender, and then Jakar reminds us, "Oh, I lived my life under oppression and being bombarded, and so." This scenario that we find ourselves in actually is the closest I've ever felt to home. And the way Andreas delivers that line, it's so touching, and yet you look at it like Londo does, where it cutbacks to Londo and he has this look of like shame on his face, where it's like Jakar shouldn't have to feel like this is home. Like that's the horrible thing, but it is what he went through. It's a sense of
Centauri guilt.
Yes, and Jakar highlights that the Narns have community. They have a sense of purpose and a sense of place. We leave our shelters and we walk out into the sunlight, and we're people again. But Londo, you never left. You carry your shelter with you.
And it's just another burden that Londo has to carry.
Why is it that this episode about Bo and Mac, these two characters we've never seen and never will again, has some of the best commentary about the psyche of Londo Mollari, which is, I was never a child, I had responsibilities, and it's like, you never grew up, you grew old. That's possibly the best encapsulation of what Londo is about, and it's in this episode.
It's scathing.
That isn't about Londo. It is. It's a scathing thing, but Londo accepts it. Like, he doesn't deny it. He looks at Jakar saying that and just has that twinkle in his eye of realization of that's true.
Yeah, that's the truth. Damn.
Yeah, and we could have easily heard similar. Okay, maybe the bunker thing, I guess, is more specific to this situation, but Londo's thing about he was never a child, like that could have. If JMS had that saved, I could easily have seen him using it in any other episode if you wanted to. But it was because it was only so little we see Londo, and then it has maybe a bit better impact because of how little time we have, and we get
if it was in that episode with the two young lovers that he helps.
Mm-hmm.
And in that same scene when, my shoes are too tight.
Or you could see it when they go to Centauri Prime in a few episodes' time, where Jakar actually gets to experience more properly the life of Centauri royalty and look at Londo as, this is what you are about, by the way. But they're not the only people being shipped here, because Mac is a big fan of Delenn and Sheridan. Also, he wants to be in that relationship, by the way. He ships himself in it.
Yeah, it's just
he wants to be a third wheel.
No, I think he wants to replace John. He's like,
we can make something work.
He's not just envious, he's jealous. He wants it for himself.
Really, I see it more as like, I want to get in that relationship somehow. Like, maybe I can be John, but heck, I'll just settle for being in it. We'll make something work. Like,
Lanier's gone.
It was weird.
Yeah, he's a new Lanier.
It was, I guess, just to prove the point that everybody falls in love with Delenn, right? But I don't know. I just saw it as like a weird. I'm not sure if it was tried to make any sort of like commentary about like celebrity worship, like it's like we have nothing to do with them, but they seem like nice people, like how do I know a certain actor or actress is actually a nice person? They're an actor. They can just be portraying that way, and that's why we get that impression. So, do they really know who the real Delenn is? I mean, I guess they get some sort of real life experience to see how she treats them, and that I guess reinforces a certain thing. But I don't know.
She treats them like people. She wants to know their name. She wants to know who they are and what they're about, what they believe in, and what they do. And she wants to be treated. No Corin.
She's the anti.
Yeah, and she wants to be treated the same way. Lockley
she doesn't
and Sheridan
demand that respect. She gives it to them first.
Lockley and Sheridan treat Delenn as this precious thing that needs to be protected. And so when they're gone, she looks at Mac and Bo, who have just been these two flunkies that have been ordered to drag her away, and she treats them with respect. And so they can treat her with respect back, because she has this whole little speech about like, what would happen if I did this? And,
time being circular.
You'll probably crash and die. Well, we wouldn't want that to happen, would we? Because that would most definitely happen if I was removed from everything I care and love about. And I just really love Mira's performance in this. She's just so friendly, and those eyes, and it's everything
light. She's light.
When Mac has that moment of saying all of this stuff about Mac and Bo talk about like, yeah, I would crawl out of the earth to come back to her, and like, I wish I could be with her. If it wasn't in the capable hands of a magnificent performer behind Delenn, this could be something that you could cross your arms at and roll your eyes about
really her?
That's how I am with some shows that we've had to cover over the years or we have watched. When they do that on Star Trek Discovery all the time, I'm like, okay. But when it's done here, I am with it. And as our podcasting experience has gone along, I've really grown to further appreciate Delenn as a character and how they've grown her from this person who on the surface appears as friendly but is filled with secrets and agendas
and power rings
and power rings, yes. And by the end of the series, she's far more open, and she's actually backing up the words she puts down rather than having them be a shield.
She's been changed by her experiences and wears that openly.
Yeah. I think it's really nice. I think it's nice, and just that's kind of how you kind of wrap a lot of things out with Mac and Bo of just being like, man, look at these two, aren't they sweet? And Sheridan being clueless when she turns around and says hello to Mac and Bo.
Like, why the fuck do you know those two?
We haven't talked about Bruce Boxleitner that much because he is in the episode, but not too much. But I don't know if you clocked it, Nick, but his reaction, just his face when she says hello, Mac and Bo, he has this look of like absolute dorky, like, what? Why are you talking to these losers?
Well, because the thought I was going to bring up was just that, Delenn has made speeches that have ended civil wars. She's thinking, I could definitely talk my way out of these.
Yeah, like I got this. I got this.
This is. I don't even need to try hard. I know I can do this.
John needed to think that he got the win, but I got this.
Yes,
she respects the workers. She gave them the power.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the thing is, part of me goes, when John reacts like that, like, how do you know who these are? Like, is he just reminded of like, he's like, I'm a president now, I'm a politician, oh jeez, I hate this job, oh my god, where are my blue socks? But Delenn, it seems effortless.
Oh yeah,
how she knows to be a politician. She's been a politician more than anything else. I mean, it's not in a crass human version of a politician, but she's been like,
in the ideal version.
I could hear the words American almost come out of Nick's mouth just a moment ago.
Yes,
you can say it. It's okay. I look, as the only Australian Babylon 5 podcast, I give you permission to shit on the Americans' politicians, okay? You've been granted it by me.
He's like the crass Australian politician.
What? No, he's not Bob Catter.
No.
I mean, people are entitled to sexual proclivities. You know, I mean, let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom as far as I'm concerned. You know, but I ain't spending any time on it because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
I think it is time, Rachel, if you are not afraid, to grow our shoulders out some more and open ourselves up to the spotlight section of the show.
With you referencing that, I do just want to make a final statement of there are so many beautiful moments and lines in this episode. Like, they just don't feel like they belong in an episode like this, and that's part of what makes them so good.
Yeah, and the actors having to carry through on the JMS lines because we've seen over the years some can and some can't, and when these
It's a hard job.
It's a hard job, and when you're handing it off to two people who have never been in the show before, we don't really have familiarity with them. We have no clue who they are, and we look through the IMDb of these actors, and there's something to note about like their relationships with people and cast and crew of Babylon 5 that make it a little bit more clear of like, oh yeah, you can give it to these guys to chew through some of the dialogue. And so we're doing a spotlight section where we talk about an actor or actress that appeared in the given thing we are watching. We talk about if we enjoyed their performance, any highlights of it. We talk about their career. We go over their roster of work as well as any interesting pieces of trivia. And Nick, who are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Raymond O'Connor, our shorter friend of the duo.
He's Mac the Knife.
Yep.
Yeah, he's been quite a lot of stuff. He's definitely a very successful character actor.
TV mostly,
yes.
But some film.
I've actually seen him in more films than TV, so that's an interesting little
When I was looking
thing.
through the list, though, there was more TV credits.
So,
Sure, but I feel like he's going to be... Because he's definitely got a look, and he'll fit a role perfectly.
Oh yeah, he fits several different roles, including a maintenance guy like this. So Mac is the man we're talking about, Raymond O'Connor, and he is the guy I think of. No offense to the guy who plays Bo, he is very good too, but by his very nature, he is the more timid one of the two. So when I look back on a view from the gallery, Mac is the guy that jumps out. He has a look to him.
Mm-hmm.
He has that way he talks. He's the way he expresses himself physically. The actor, I really, really adore this performance. This is a wonderful performance.
Bring in the Bronx.
I never flinch and doubt for a moment that this is a guy who's worked his entire life playing around with wires and cables and having to stick his hand in something that's dirty and gross. Like, he feels like an actual guy that is doing the job that this episode is saying he is doing. And I just really like him a lot. And he's so physical in the role, and he's constantly grabbing things and climbing over stuff and crawling around and sitting, and he's just so wonderful. And there's one of my favorite performance moments is near the end when he is talking about what his mother used to say, and he's going through that, and just how he would put on a bit of an accent when he's referring to his mother to let us know, like, oh, this is where she's from. And so there's history and life, and he just adds so many different shades and colors to the character. And the episode lives and breathes on the actors making you believe that these are real people that existed before the episode and exist after it, rather than just, is this a backdoor pilot, or like, is this a random thing?
Yes, which it easily could have fallen into, and I'm so grateful that it doesn't.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of the performance. Rachel, were there any particular things that Raymond was putting down in the episode that leapt out to you? And do you like what he's doing here? Do you like Mac?
I like what he's doing, to the point where I'm just like, that's just Mac, which is not a great thing to bring to the spotlight discussions because it's not very interesting. But I like the presence that he brings and the sort of the a little bit of arrogance that he has of
cockiness.
Yes. Of like, I know what I'm doing. I'm right. And like whatever he says he's really confident in, even when you know that he's not confident.
He has a blustering quality to him. And really,
like if I say it in a confident tone, it must be right.
And this is a statement that I'm going to say, I mean this as a positive, but he's a very striking looking man. Like he has a very specific look to him. And it is one of, you are a character actor.
Yeah.
You are a man that they call up to play certain types of roles. But I do not say that to besmirch him. I say that as a praising thing because these are the people who make productions.
He's working with something.
Who fill out the productions. You need people like Raymond O'Connor. If you don't have him here as Mac and you just have someone who looks like Bruce Boxleitner, say, you wouldn't believe it. You would be like, no, thank you. You need someone like Raymond here to come in with his short, stocky build and those kind of bug-out eyes and his gelled back hair and just he's lived a life. This is a man who walks in like many great character actors and just seeing their face tells you more than a script can even do. Nick, you seemed pretty excited when I messaged you with the Spotlight Actor of Choice. So please tell us a little bit about your thoughts on his performance in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, definitely to the point about the, as a character actor, you need those people to fill out the roles. And actually, the fact that he's from the Bronx, and then because we forget that Peter is from, I think he's from the Bronx. He's from New York. Definitely
from Queens or something.
You hear when he talks Queens or something. Yeah, I'm not gonna insult anybody and pretend I know the difference in the accents between the Bronx accent and Queens. But
they're New Yorkers.
Still, it's New Yorkers. Okay, now we're going to Staten Island.
Sure,
that one I know a little bit. But just like Peter is also a character actor, and you give those guys the right script. They know, like I said, the physical beats they do. They know how to carry themselves, how to the timing of the responding, just in the dialogue. You can really see in his performance here, he's a guy who's been a consistently quality actor in his roles. He's not getting the lead roles; he's getting the supporting stuff like that. And even just looking at his IMDb earlier. And there's that one striking thing where I think he looks like he must be some sort of like mob guy, and he's got the slick back hair and his nice clean suit, and you're just like, oh, I could totally see him do that. Like, like he's getting those parts, and you're like, I want this type of character. He knows how to do it, and he knows how to act and deliver based on the writing. So is one of those, again, consistent quality guys that delivers the characters that you need to make any sort of, a lot of TV shows, but it can also be a film. He helps to fill out a scene. You don't want the dud actor to ruin the scene.
It's weird to say this, but he does look and feel like, oh yeah, you're a New York guy.
Yeah.
And the type of roles you play can cater to that. So he can play the doorman.
Yeah.
He can play the security guard, the cop, the gangster, the maintenance worker. He can play the priest. He plays all these roles, and it's not like those are exclusively New York roles, but at the same time, like when you put someone like him in them or Peter Jurasik, and then
vibe.
You just accept it. There's something where you just throw your hands up at the air and go, yes, I accept it. And I think a part of it is like, some of those roles are played by people who are like Italian Americans, Polish Americans, Irish Americans, and so or Scottish Americans, like you have those type of things where a lot of those groups you associate with those type of jobs. And so when you have someone like Raymond O'Connor come in and play a priest in something, I nod my head going, of course. But then you see him with a zoot suit on, a slick back hair and a gun. You go, oh yeah, of course you're a gangster.
Yep.
And
that adaptability.
He has a relationship with some of the B5 cast and crew. So
because his second job, his second role was on Hill Street Blues.
In an episode with Peter Jurasik. Now, I didn't double check to see if they had scenes together, but it is good to note that down that B5, a lot of the cast and crew did come off of previous projects like Hill Street Blues and Murder, She Wrote, and a few others, and that some of them would go on to similar projects, such as he went on to be in an episode of NYPD Blue, which we've also seen many of the actors and guest actors go on to as well. And so he has had a plethora of roles, mainly smaller roles, ones that are you see them in 1, maybe 2 scenes. While here in B5, this is a whole episode given to him.
Folks at your level, I mean, we don't get asked that a lot, ma'am. We just get orders. My name is Mac, and this is Bo. We're kind of a team. Floaters, I guess you could say.
A lot of guys in maintenance have their own beat. We get assigned to whatever needs doing.
Yeah, we keep the place running while the big boys are fighting or making all the big decisions.
He is in one of my favorite Steve Martin films.
My Blue Heaven?
My Blue Heaven, where he plays a gangster friend of Steve Martin in that. And I remember him, and we covered that. My friend Bartek and I run another podcast, and we did My Blue Heaven, and I exclaimed, like, hey, it's Mac from B5, everyone, it's Mac. And Bartek looked at me with doe eyes, being like, oh, I don't know who that is, because he hadn't watched it yet. But Nick, looking over Raymond O'Connor's filmography, he's been around for a while. He hasn't acted in a little while. He's been kind of retired from film and TV, but
2016, I think, was the last credit I saw.
So is there anything in his catalogue that leapt out to you that you said, oh, yes, I've seen that? Or even, hey, I remember him in that?
Yeah, no, there's definitely stuff that I recognize, but I'll be honest that I think I will only ever refer, if I saw him in something else, I would definitely do the same. Oh, that's Mac from Babylon 5. I might not remember Mac if it was a while since I've seen the episode, but I would probably say, oh, he's that guy from the gallery episode, whatever it was called, you know. But yeah, it's definitely stuff that I've seen, but I don't remember him specifically in it. I think I think it was Life Stinks, and I was like, oh, it's been a long time since I've seen that, but I should go back and just to spot him. That's another throw that on your other podcast.
He's been in a Michael Bay movie. He was in The Rock. He was also in Ted Danson classic Becca. Mm-hmm. But I'm surprised that we haven't
Is it time? Is it time to discuss?
Yes. Is it time to discuss Buffy, the Vampire Slayer?
Yes.
I'm not a big Buffy head. I
saw that he's on Buffy, but it was like, you know,
he's a literal loan shark.
Yes.
He's a demon with a shark head.
Who's asking for money.
Who's asking for money.
And
it's
a big that's a big episode too, right? Like that's important.
Yeah,
that's like one of the higher rated episodes of that season.
Like it's the one after the musical episode, when Buffy is just being like come back from the dead, but this time she was in heaven, so she's pissed that she's been brought back. She's like, I know they were just trying to help, but like I was at peace.
Yes, it was almost like Joss Whedon and crew looked at the camera and said, we were at peace with her dying.
And now I have to deal with all of this over again.
Yes, it's like we've run out of storylines. We have to do it again.
And
they all forget who they are. Yeah, the loan shark that's going after Spike.
And so I have a fun fact about this. So I'm not a Buffy head. I had to look this up because I was saying to Rachel, hey, do you remember this? And Rachel was like, So I did some Googling and I saw the picture. Yes. And it's a picture of him, and he's got like this prosthetic on his head of a shark for his head with the fin and everything. It's gorgeous. If you haven't seen the picture, go ahead, look. It's very funny.
Please include some of his audio because like he growls.
He's going full ham.
It's so much fun.
I said she was the Slayer boss. Ah, good for you. The Vampire Slayer. Have you ever given any thought to a freelance work? A little debt collecting, perhaps?
No, thank you.
Raymond O'Connor has retired from the screen, at least. I don't know if he still does theatre, but I wanted to know what he is up to today. I was curious, so I did some perusing, and he's on Facebook. And I knew it was him, because his profile picture is of Teeth, the gangster shark, loan shark.
He does get a proper name.
Yes, it does. He has a funny name too. I can't remember what it was. But it was
like Bros.
Yes, Bros. And he's a bro shark man. But I just had a giggle that this actor, who I don't know how old he is now, he's got to be in his late 60s, his Facebook profile picture is him as a silly shark in Buffy. Like, there's actual professional headshots of him and everything else, but he chose the still of him as the goofy shark. And you know what? That says everything I need to know, that he must have got a kick out of playing a version of a character he's probably played a million times over, but cranked up to 11 stupid.
Yep. I do want to note that other people must also really enjoy that character and that idea of the loan shark, because he comes back and is pivotal in some of the Spike-based comic books, like Spike Angel comic books, and dealing with things. And like, there's a cool trivia point about his character that's on the wiki that I won't spoil.
Thank you for not spoiling it for me, Rachel. Now, he is 5'4", so he is short. And I cannot tell you how tall the guy who plays Bo is, because his IMDb doesn't give me that information. But I was wanting to know, how short is Mac or how tall is Bo? And I have a random history with Raymond O'Connor that I'm wanting to share. But first, is there anything else that either of you want to bring to the table when it comes to Raymond O'Connor? Anything else that you found in your travels or want to bring up about his career, his performance, or any just pieces of trivia?
Ryan, you must be really confident that this is the cherry on top. Mm-hmm. And you haven't told me.
You know it in real life, so you'll hear it again as a tale of old for you, but a tale of new for the Yumlings. So, I, as stated, have seen Raymond O'Connor and talked about him on my other podcast, Spit and Polish Presents, when we did My Blue Heaven. Now, on that series, we used to do commentary tracks for films, and we would call them unappreciated masterpieces, the films that people would not regularly praise as strongly as we did. And we finished that series with Big Mama's House, the Martin Lawrence, Paul Giamatti film classic. Because we started out with a Paul Giamatti film for children, we thought we would end with one. And there was an actor who played a very, very big role in the film, and I mean big, like he was important, but he wasn't credited. Half the cast of Big Mama's House has no form of creditation to them, not in the actual credits, not on IMDb, and it was Raymond O'Connor. He was the Martin Lawrence's boss at the FBI. He was like a chief of the FBI. I don't know what his role is, but he was the head of the FBI in the
head of the department or whatever.
Head of the department. He was the guy who says, "Here's the mission. Here's what you got to do. Here's the story." And he had an attitude. He was snarky. And I was doing the podcast, and it drove me crazy to see this familiar face and not be able to find out who it was. Because there was no way to find out. They didn't credit him. And I was mad. If you ever listen to that episode, you can hear me go, "I know who this is, please." And I did the Google Lens search for his face, and it wasn't coming up. And then, by happenstance, I was just doing a B5 rewatch a few months later, and I came up to a view from the gallery, and I stood up and went, "It's the guy from Big Mama's House. It's the guy." And I lost my mind. I'm like, yay, I got an answer. Because,
I'm vindicated!
Because as the last episode of that series for my podcast, it was forever burned into my brain that there was an actor I couldn't figure out who they were.
And you're good with remembering
I'm good with
actors
memories of, and it was like his face and his voice really stood out to me. It was like those eyes really stood out because he has those little buggy eyes, these like little pug eyes. And I was like, who is this guy? And I found out thanks to the power of rewatching Babylon 5. And that's what this podcast is all about. And the Spotlight section is all about is me just saying, hey, who's this little player in the story? Let's go down the rabbit hole and see what's going on there. And sometimes you get some rewards like, hey, he was in Big Mama's House, but he wasn't credited. Somebody should fix this. All right. If we had to rate this episode on our immaculate scale of Yum being bad and Yum Yum being good, what would it be? No half yums are allowed. And to be a gentleman, I will give it to our guest first. Nick, Yum or Yum Yum?
I was going to say, do we all want to say it at the same time? Because I think we're probably all going to
Don't you score. Put me in a corner.
I'll say it with you, Nick.
Nick, I'm going to use the clip 3 times. I don't want to use it just once. I got Rachel going now. See what you did to my wife? See what you made me do to my wife?
She's your wife. Yeah.
Off she goes like a squeaky trolley down the aisle.
What? Okay, while she's busy, I'll just go ahead and say yum yum.
Yum yum.
So you think this is a good episode, huh?
It's definitely a good episode. Sorry. I think I need to stop. I can't continue.
Welcome to my life. It's a great life, and I'm going to give a view from the gallery a yum yum.
Yum yum.
Rachel,
Yum yum.
Yum yum.
thank you for letting me use it 3 times, Your Majesty. Now, if we are bold and brave and ready, I have the DVD description for the next episode. So let's find out what is happening next time on Babylon 5.
On the next Babylon 5.
Episode 5, Learning Curve. An unseasoned ranger cadet proves his mettle when he stands up to a station crime lord. Garibaldi's suspicions about the new station chief Lockley continue to grow. Unlike his hair.
Garibaldi.
I added that last bit. That was me. JMS would never, ever dare to put that in the description. So thank you.
No, he just wrote it as the dialogue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We didn't know it would make his hair fall out.
Hey, at least Jerry Doyle admitted he was bald, unlike Bruce Boxleitner with the spray-on hair. But that's a story for another time. Nick, thank you so much for coming back on and joining us for, I guess, the final time to talk about B5. How does that feel, mister?
I mean, I'll be here when you guys talk about Crusade.
We're not covering Crusade. You have to pay me.
Okay,
you have to pay me to do Crusade. That's some premium shit right there.
I have the power to make that a patron tier.
Oh no!
Oh,
come on, we're
patron
already
tier.
going to do Legend of the Rangers. Isn't that bad enough? I don't want to have to talk about Gideon and our good friend
Sorry,
Galen.
Are you saying Legend of the Rangers is better than Crusade?
No, I'm saying it's bad enough that I would already be doing that.
Just checking.
Look.
Whew.
Are they on equal footing? Almost.
No.
Are they closer than sisters?
How about this? How about we bring you on for Legend of the Rangers?
I can't. I would do anything else but that one. That's literally the only B5 media that I regret watching. And Pat has not watched it because of
Okay, I'll bring Pat on this. Because it's honorable. And that is all we have to say on this episode. You can find us on your social media of choice under YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast.
If you want to email us.
Yes, Rachel?
Then you have to figure out the email.
It's in the description. We gave you the clues, Mr. Policeman. Man.
I'll give you a hint. It's yumyumpod@gmail.com.
I can't hear you. Repeat that.
yumyumpod@gmail.com.
3 times just for the yum yum luck.
Yum.
Mm-hmm.
YUM.
Mm-hmm.
How you spell yum,
Mm-hmm.
in case you were wondering.
Yes, thank you.
So it's yum
Oh,
pod, POD.
Oh, thank you. I was going to put a Q.
At. The symbol.
Oh, I was going to write at.
Yep.
Which I don't know how to spell. But,
G.
yeah.
The letter G.
Like the spot.
Mm-hmm. Mail.
Oh, like I am?
No. Spell different.
Okay. She won't spell it.
Different.
Dot.
MAIL.
Oh, I was going to write MAYALL.
.com. COM.
We also have a Patreon in which we do so much bonus content over there. We are going through The Expanse right now. We are going through the RoboCop movie franchise as was voted by our patrons. And we give our thoughts on things. We have a group Discord that you can be a part of where we shoot the shit, share some memes, talk about stuff. Nick, on the occasion, will just randomly drop a mysterious link in the group Discord that makes us all panic because it doesn't tell us what it is. And I go, do I download Nick's secret, dirty, filthy link? And then it will just be a clip from B5 or something. I'm like, oh, thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Now that's on my hard drive.
9 times out of 10, it's a B5 GIF.
It's a GIF that is too big for Discord, so you like download my GIF, and I'm like, okay. Now I own it. Now I own it. But thank you so much, Nick, for coming back on. It's been a pleasure to have both the brothers on, but when are we going to get the third brother? You know, Timmy. When's he coming on?
Timmy, dig up from the grave. Yeah.
You killed him? I knew you were the bad one. I knew you were the evil twin. Pat would never do such a thing. He's a good man and boy at the same time.
The lore of Timmy has changed, but part of it was always that he was the long lost twin, and that he,
You lost him. Wow, can't believe you. But Jakar was here in the episode, and he did not thump his chest and say good eating to you. And I am so disappointed that I'm just going to finish talking right now. The podcast is over on my end, at least.
Good eating to you.
Good eating to you.